Well, this is Ticats Today, and I'm Steve Milton, and I am so pleased to be joined in a little more intimate surrounding Brandon than we normally have by Brandon Barlow, the great defensive end for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Welcome, Brandon.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, and we're very happy to have you. And the purpose of discussions like this is for you and I to talk a little bit, for our fans, the fans of the Tiger Cats, to get to know you a little bit better. And of course, all they know you as is the enemy up until this year. How did it feel crossing the road, so to speak?
To be honest with you, I felt like it was a really smooth transition. From early on, I got to know the coaches once I signed. I came up here, I got to meet the staff, started learning the defense early, so it was honestly a great, smooth transition, and I was just excited for the opportunity.
Why here?
I just felt a very family-oriented environment from this organization. I felt like I was wanted here, and that was something that was big for me. I wanted to go somewhere where I felt like I was going to be valued as a player for what I could help bring to the table, and that's something that I'm working on every week, is just always keep bringing more to the table.
You mentioned family there, so let's go back. Let's go back to your beginnings, if we can. You grew up in the middle of New York State in Albany, which is the capital district. Growing up, was it a good football environment there?
Yeah, so I was, like you said, was in upstate New York. It's not quite the same as it is down south, where it's much more heavy football intensive, where it's more like a religion. But I definitely had a great environment of learning. I also had my father to help me out, who's played himself. So just being able to learn through those methods and through those avenues was a great experience.
Speaking of your father's Reggie, right? Reggie Barlow.
Correct.
And there was another Reggie Barlow, I think, that played in the NFL, was there not, at one point?
Most likely.
Yeah, it probably was, yeah. But that isn't your father. But he was a good player. He played in the SEC, did he not?
Yeah, he played at Auburn, then he went on to play in the NFL for a little bit, bounced around, actually played in the CFL for a little bit, then the Arena League later on.
Who did he play with in the CFL?
I believe it was the Rough Riders, but not when they were in Saskatchewan, I believe.
Oh, Ottawa. That was the original. Yeah. That would be confusing to somebody from the United States, because we had 9 teams, 2 named Rough Riders, which at the time. So your father was one heck of a player, and he played Arena League, as you mentioned, in Albany, and he played with Kahari Jones.
Correct. Yeah, actually, I got to meet Kahari after our game with Ottawa last year. My dad brought that up to me. He's like, hey, me and him were very close friends. They were actually roommates. So kind of funny how things go full circle sometimes.
Yeah, it's so obviously. Have you seen Kahari recently?
No, I haven't seen Kahari recently, no.
He hasn't gotten in contact with you and say, well, welcome to this. I mean, he was here as well, right, as an advisor before Ottawa. And how much having a father that played, you alluded to it briefly, how much having a father that played, does that help you as a human being and as a player?
Absolutely. I mean, having someone who knows the mindset of football, knows what it takes when you're growing up, goes a long way. It gives you someone that you can talk to who is essentially like a coach at home. So any questions I had or any time that I needed to be doing more, I always had the right guidance, I feel like. And whether it was recruiting process or even at the college level, he's always been someone throughout my entire career that I've been able to look back on for advice and the right advice, because, not only is he telling me it because he cares, but because he's lived it himself. So it's definitely a huge asset that I try to take advantage of as much as I can.
You talked about the recruiting process. Maybe you can describe how that was for you, but you ended up at Boston College, which, for a guy with some potential at that time, was not considered a very, they hadn't done well. Let's put it that way. Maybe you can walk me through that. They hadn't done. I think they hadn't won a game the year before, right? A couple of years before.
The year prior to me arriving there, I believe they didn't win an ACC game. It was a rough year that year, I remember. And ironically enough, despite that, they had the number 1 defense in the country. But then there were some offensive struggles, so they were kind of having a balancing act. But I felt personally as though it was the right school for me, because I was entering into a great defensive scheme. And it was also a very similar deal. I felt like it's a very family-oriented environment, great institution, great education. So checked a lot of boxes for me. It was close enough to home where my family can come and watch me. So for those reasons, I felt like it was the right choice.
When you get there, I think you played you would have played 2-3 years, and then the pandemic hit. Maybe you could walk. Players got extra credit if they chose to take it. You could have an extra year there. So in all, I think you were there 6 years.
Yes, in total, I was there 5.5, 6 years, pretty much.
Right.
It was pretty much 6 years. But like you said, I had played about 3 years before the pandemic hit, and then that 2020 season was interesting to say the least. Us being the ACC, we still played, but it didn't take away from our eligibility. So I was able to come back for another year. I wanted to use that extra year to keep developing, keep trying to raise my stock, and also finish my master's degree. At that point, I already finished up my bachelor's degree, so wanted to improve my education as much as I can. Got my master's in project management. So it was overall a good path. It wasn't exactly the path that anyone would have expected, but it all worked out for the best, I believe.
Do you know many players that had master's degrees that went on to play pro football?
I know from my experience at Boston College, I would say there's a decent amount of guys that would go on to their fifth years and get their degrees, but I wouldn't say it's too common in my experience.
Mm-hmm. Could you explain what that master's is in? You said project management. What does that mean, and what does that mean for your post-football career? I assume you have that in mind.
Yes. So project management is basically being the organizer of a project, essentially. A lot of the courses I took at that time related to construction-oriented projects and the development, the planning, and the follow-through of completing that project with time and working within a team. So I felt as though it was something I could relate to because I felt it was very similar to football, where you're working with a team and all the pieces have to work together, much similar to football. So I felt like it was something that I would definitely be interested in pursuing down the road later.
Do you pay attention, even while you're playing, do you pay attention to things like construction? If you drive by a building, do you look at things? Or that, is it your hobby, mental hobby? Or?
Honestly, right now, I would say my number one passion is football, so that's going to get the majority of my dedication and my time. But, it's something that spiked my interest, to be honest with you. But for as long as I can, I want to keep playing. I know, obviously, there's also the coaching avenue as well. I think I could be a coach one day as well, and that would be something that interested me. But it's just going to come down to trying it when that time comes. You're
not sort of looking at it as a coach now as you're playing. Like you're not storing it in the back of your mind.
Well, I think it's kind of, twofold. Like you naturally are going to learn about that process as you play just by being part of the game. See how coaches organize stuff, see schemes, concepts, different plays that work against different schemes. So naturally, as a player, I feel as though you should already be developing those skills as a coach. I know for myself, the type of player I am, I want to be as aware as I can of my surroundings, whether it's what's within the defense or the offense, so that I could essentially be a coach on the field as much as I can. So I think the two go hand in hand.
Your head coach now, Scott Milanovich, refers to you as a natural leader. Would you say that's true? That he says that you're dependable that way, your enthusiasm, you see the bright side of life. Do you think those are all fair descriptions of you?
Yeah, I definitely am a glass half full type of guy. You got to be, because always in life there's going to be some sort of adversity, some sort of challenge in your face, and you got to find a way to overcome it. So, just certain ways I do that is just trying to be the best communicator I can to my teammates, to my coaches, whatever it may be. And it's definitely something that I've worked on over the years of how to be that effective communicator. I've always felt like I've had a certain way of words of being able to communicate how I feel or how I see things, but being able to do it on a large scale is always a challenge and a huge responsibility. And I've had the luxury of working with great leaders from high school to college to pros that I've been able to learn from them as well and see how they do it and implement it into ways that I do it as well.
I want to tell everybody who's listening and or watching here that I had the opportunity to watch you in working with kids earlier this year in one of the programs that the Ticats run and drills. And you'd think that was your full-time job at the time. Both you and Dwayne were together working on a group, and I couldn't talk to you because you didn't want to. You just wanted to work with the kids there. You're pretty close friends with Dwayne, right?
Yeah, Dwayne was my dog for real. Yep. So Like you were saying, though, we were coaching drills, and it honestly was a lot of fun. We were doing offensive line versus defensive line, and me and Wayne were coaching the defensive line. Jordan Murray was coaching the O-line, and they were doing one-on-one. So coaching up, teaching them how to, get their moves in sync and beat the man was definitely an exciting experience.
When a young kid looks up to a professional athlete and you give him, and I watch this closely there, and you give him that moment. I mean, Ticats are huge in this town. They're bigger than the Argos are in Toronto, but they're definitely huge here. Can you see what's in that person's face? They happen to be all boys, that group, the one I saw. Could you see that in their faces?
Absolutely. And you kind of feel it yourself as well. Like, you're trying to help coach them up, and then they actually execute it. And it's like you feel as though you're a part of that as well. Kind of gives you a little glimpse into the coaching end of it too, but it kind of reminds you of, like, as a player, like, we're all in this together, and that's just part of keeping that positive mindset too. So it's really an exciting deal to see that.
There's a lot more that I could talk to you about this, and I hope that we can talk about this more during the season. But I want to wrap this up by looking ahead to the fact that there are 5 of you, I think, from last year's Argo team. That
Correct.
Sound about right?
Yep.
5 going against the Argos at home. It always means something here. Doesn't matter if it's Labor Day or not. It means something. You guys 5 talk about it. What does it mean playing against them now? It's been less than a year.
Yeah, I think it's actually 6 of us now, actually,
6,
funnily enough.
Yeah.
But it's an exciting experience, I've always been in the mindset of the next game is the most important game, always. But obviously when you're playing former teammates, it definitely encourages you to bring a little extra chip on your shoulder. We've been able to go to battle each other in practice many a times, and now it's going to be the real deal. So I'm just going to be excited, It's going to be a great experience. It's the next game. It's the most important game. So the mindset's not changing, but it's definitely going to be exciting where I'm going to be really flying around, and I think all of us will be.
You know what defense means to a town like this. You come up with the 3 sacks in the one game. Is that necessary now? I feel it is. Not you maybe getting 3, but this town understands defense. They live it. And especially against the Argos. They can change games around. You guys need to maybe step up the production a little bit on sacks?
Yeah, I think there's always room for improvement, obviously, and that's something that we're always working on as a unit. Something I try to emphasize not only to myself but the team is, like, make sure that we are winning our reps as much as we can. Got to win our reps, focus on what we got to do, and execute it fast, and then that's how production works. Well, as soon as you deviate from that mindset, you start maybe getting focused on the wrong things. Nope, just stay the course, keep rushing and winning, and the rest will take care of itself. So obviously that's an area that we're working to improve this week, and I feel confident about the work we put in, but there's still more to put in, so we're going to keep chipping away.
Okay, I want to thank Brandon Barlow. I think everybody who's been listening and watching can see and hear why Scott Milanovich refers to him as a leader. This has been Ticats Audio Network. Join us next time. I'm Steve Milton.